Hi, this is Adam Stern, CEO of Strata SFR. Welcome to the next installment of our podcast, Inside SFR. I am with one of our lead brokers at Strata SFR, Ian Edmiston.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on it.
How's it going, man?
Doing good.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about what makes a great broker. Throughout the course of my day, my week, my year, I run into a lot of people that call themselves brokers, but they don't really do any of the things that either good or okay or even great brokers do. And a lot of people that I run into that don't identify themselves as brokers are actually the best brokers of all, right? I wanted to go over what makes a great broker and what the 7 principles are that really make great brokers. And we came up with this together, one broker to another, really thinking through points that make a good broker or even a great broker. So before we get to the principles of what makes a great broker, let's define what a broker is. So like in general terms, a broker is anyone that brings 2 parties together under an agreement. You with that?
Absolutely.
All right, so some examples of what a broker could be. First one, obvious one.
Real estate broker.
Real estate broker, right? Person that brings 2 parties together for a real estate transaction. Let's think about another example of what a broker could be.
Another one might be a family member, for example, working to bring another family member back into the fold with the rest of everyone.
Great example, right? So you have a mother, a father, a cousin, an aunt that sees another family member that was estranged for whatever reason. Maybe it's drugs, maybe it's they went off on a life path that no one else agreed with, but they've somehow become estranged, and that person brings the other family member back into the fold.
Yeah.
Great example of a broker. How about a diplomat that works to bring 2 warring nations together under a common resolution or an accord? To me, that would be a broker. So that way we identify what a broker is and some examples of brokers. Let's go over the 7 principles that make what a really great broker is.
Yeah, so a great broker really identifies an opportunity and kind of thoroughly vets it with an eye towards the wants and the needs of the source that it's coming from.
Okay, so what you're saying is first step in being a great broker is identifying the opportunity, but not only identifying it and finding it, vetting it for all of its good, bad, ugly points.
Yeah, fully understanding the opportunity.
Right, yep. Great first step. So I would say the second principle of being a great broker is providing that source with counsel on how to structure that opportunity so that it can be presented in its best light, right? So in the example of real estate, you put together your spreadsheet or your offer memorandum, whatever document puts that opportunity into the best light.
So the third principle that really makes a great broker would be someone who identifies and condenses a market to which that opportunity can be brought and ventures to understand the wants and needs of that market.
So that's interesting. So in the example of the diplomat bringing 2 warring nations together, you want to find people or participants that agree with the opportunity to reach an agreement, to reach an accord, and really identify what they want. Until you understand what they want, in terms of what those buyers are, what that market is, you really can't venture to introduce the opportunity in any kind of light, because really what an opportunity is, whether it's a real estate opportunity or whether it's the family member or the diplomat, you really got to understand what those people that would be the buyers or the market for that opportunity are, and in understanding that and identifying it in a condensed way, in a condensed market that you could actually attack and get your arms around. So let's use an example of one of the portfolios that we just got in our hands. It's a Chicago portfolio of 45 single-family homes. Now, Chicago is not an area we have a whole lot of buyers in, so what we had to do is figure out what potential buyers really would want to take a swipe at the opportunity. And the first thing we did was we identified all the owners of single-family rental properties that own any substantial amount, right? So finding that list, which we did, identifying the LLCs, identifying the people that own those LLCs, and then reaching out to them to find out if they're in buy mode, right? Do they want to acquire new houses? Do they want to acquire the houses that are in this portfolio? And in making the outreach, not only identifying the LLCs, but also reaching out to the owners of those LLCs to identify what their need is, what we're really doing is it's creating a market for it. So principle number 4, a great broker introduces the opportunity with an eye toward the wants and needs of the market to which the opportunity is presented. Further, he or she explains the opportunity in a commonly used language, right?
Yep. We have a lot of verbiage that we use day to day. Cap rates, operating expenses, expense load.
Stabilized gross yield, going in cap rate, going in net yield. So these are all terms that we as industry professionals use to really present the opportunity in a language that might not be understood by all, but certainly understood by guys like me and you and others in the industry.
Yep. And so we're kind of laying a base groundwork of communication between all parties to make sure everyone understands every aspect of the deal. And so
Right.
that's the common ground you're kind of laying. And as long as everyone's speaking the same language, there's a good open line of communication.
Yeah, and you present the opportunity in its best light. I think what a great broker does, you draw attention to the good, obviously, but you also draw attention to the bad and the ugly, because they're going to find it out anyway, right? So in the example of a real estate deal, you might present an OM with benefits and risks. If you're the family member bringing the estranged family member back into the fold, you might identify the behavior that that family member exhibited before they went away, what the risk of a relapse is, so that everyone's on the same page with, what could potentially happen, which should make them more comfortable with the risk they're taking. It's a great point. Principle number 5 is identifying the friction points and working to break down those friction points in order to reach or identify a common ground, right? So like the idea is before you bring anyone to the table, you really got to set the table first. You got to be able to identify this common ground that both parties can get and at least at a high level agree upon there's an opportunity that you both want to focus on. So in real estate, right, easy way to see this is you have an opportunity like the Chicago portfolio, not getting an offer or even an indication of interest at first, just identifying the fact that, hey, you're an owner in a market, you own a bunch of other rentals in the market, kind of like these, maybe not, and we've got an opportunity you should look at. Are you interested? Yeah, I would. I would like to see the opportunity. And that way you've set the table and you haven't really gone any deeper than that, but you've just set this common ground that the market, the buyer, can actually step to.
Correct. And then to go off of that, I would say something we do in our analysis is we get our hands wrapped around, we get our heads wrapped around a general condition or CapEx budget for portfolios
Right.
that we take on. And so sometimes if that budget is higher, that can be a friction point for some of our buyers,
Right.
as they may not want to go through all the rehab work. So typically when we take on those opportunities, we'll highlight that up front whenever we're presenting it to a buyer so that we have all of our cards on the table and those friction points are presented up front. And at that point, we're allowed to get past or move on.
And that's a friction point with a lot of our sellers too. They want to sell a portfolio and they don't want to go through the regimen of rehabbing 45 properties. So we have to identify what the actual is, what condition they're in, and explain it to the buyer and actually price it appropriately at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Great point.
Principle number 6, a great broker really brings both parties under a general agreement using common ground.
Right, okay, so now that the table is set and that there is a common ground, you got to start getting more particular. You got to sharpen your pencil, as the saying goes. So like that agreement that is based on the common ground that you identified is now put into a more finer focus. Meaning, from a real estate perspective, we're asking a buyer to actually present us with a number, an offer on the property. We're asking the buyer to maybe present some terms on the property, that which the seller can actually review and then respond to, right? What would be the parallel between the family member? I got to go in. I'm a big A&E fan. You ever see that show Intervention? So like when they do the intervention, there's like, rules or like asks that the family does in order to get the family member to come back into the fold. And usually that includes them going to rehab, them saying they won't do X, Y, and Z again, right? So like in my mind, the parallel between the family member example is the family setting the ground rules for what will bring the family member, the terms that'll bring the family member back into the fold, right?
That's a good point.
Principle number 7, a great broker gets both parties to agree on specific terms to bring the negotiation for the opportunity to a close. So in a real estate deal, hey, you presented an offer, you counter-offered, we both agree on the price, we both agree on the terms, let's get under contract. Diplomat.
From there, that's when the two warring countries come to an accord and they sign the agreement of what each respective party is going to do.
That's it. So the diplomat did all the above, identified the opportunity to bring two countries together, set the table, found common ground, got everyone to the table, and actually started creating points that can actually be put into an agreement or an accord, right? And at the end of the day, nuclear war is avoided.
According to the documents.
According to the documents, that's right. So I hope this is entertaining. I hope this is interesting. The way we think about being a broker is a lot different than I think most think about being brokers, because we consider ourselves great brokers. And one of the things that we do in our daily business is talking to other brokers about how to exhibit these principles and how to work with us in a proactive and in a highly ethical manner. If you're looking for some great brokers, www.stratasfr.com. You've got two right here. We've got a whole team of great brokers who understand these principles, and that should take us out, right?
That's right. Appreciate you having me, Adam.
If you like the podcast today, you can see us on all the major podcast platforms. Thanks for listening.